Today, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today I am Sushanta Paudel, a final year MBBS student at Nepalese Institute of Health Sciences, Kathmandu, Nepal. And today I am going to present this paper on my research that was based on the histological features of kidney observed through conventional microscope and paper microscope, that is a foldscope. First of all, let us talk about foldscope. What is a foldscope? Means it is a paper microscope that is made from the paper, which is based on the origami Japanese method of paper folding, and it is one of the latest inventions in the field of the science. That was invented by Dr. Manu Prakash in Stanford University. It is a ultra low cost and a portable device. It is versatile and it is also waterproof and does not require electricity for its working. The research on this is focused on the comparison of the usefulness of the usefulness of the paper microscope and identification of the histological features of the kidney. We compared it by observing it on the slides of the kidney and the foldscope, and by observing it on the slides of the kidney and the conventional microscope, that is the laboratory microscope that we use regularly on our anatomy or histological lab. And what was our presumption? That presumption was that the result is enable us to know about the use of the foldscope in the field of histology for the identification of the histological features of kidneys. Talking about the methodology, it was an observational comparative study which was carried out in the Department of Anatomy. That was principally histological lab on the Nepalese Institute of Health Sciences, Nepal, Kathmandu. And how the kidney were selected as sample was by the lottery method. We had various samples of slides, but the kidney were selected from the by lottery method. And there was any uh, we had taken our prior approval from the institutional review committee, and our proposal was approved, and we didn't. There is no any conflict of interest, as we are not any collaboration with the producer of this device, or any funding was taken from the device. And the basis of the inclusion was all of the slides of the kidney present at the department were taken into our experiment, or we can say that our paper. But the exclusion criteria was the slides with the air bubble, the non-uniform staining slides, and the slides with the overlapping structures, which were difficult for the identification of their features, were excluded from our paper. Means from our the study was conducted from June 2019 to September 2019 during a period of 3 months, and there was no any ethical issues identified. The flowchart of the study, first of all, the histological sites were viewed under 100x magnification in the conventional microscope, and the peculiar characteristics of the cortex and the medulla of the kidney were viewed. Means, and after that, the same slides were viewed under the foldscope, that is the paper microscope, and again the histological features of the kidney were viewed and identified under the paper microscope. And the comparison of the histological features was carried out, and the quality of the image, basis on the quality of the image, basis on the lining epithelium, on the basis of the ciliated or non-ciliated columnar epithelium, and the staining of the lumen and size of the lumen. These were the features that was compared on basis. And the digital photographs of the observation were taken with the help of mobile phone, and the appropriate figures and the tabular representation of the observations were made out. First of all, we carried out the observations. The total number of the samples that were selected for the study was 25 in number. And we can see here the basis of identification of the histological features was on the basis of the Bowman's capsule in the cortex and the glomerulus in the cortex, and the urinary space in the cortex, that is the distance between the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule. And the section of the proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubule in the cortex were also identified, and the sections of the connecting duct and the loop of the Hillis were also identified. Here, the peculiar features of the proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubules were identified on the basis of the size of the lumen, the lining epithelium. In the proximal convoluted tubule, the lining epithelium is ciliated and with columnar epithelium, but in GCT it is not ciliated epithelium. In the similarly, in the collecting duct and the loop of the Hillis, the lining epithelium and the features were identified, and the total number of the observations were 25. In this observation, the corticomedullary distinction was appropriate with the help of the foldscope as well. The foldscopes were able to identify the renal capsules, the police was able to identify the glomerulus. The polyscope was able to identify the urinary space, and every observation that were made on the conventional microscope, the polyscope was also able to make same kind of observations. Now, on the basis of the cortex and the medulla, first of all, we observe the lining epithelium of the proximal convoluted tubule and the distal convoluted tubule, and the observations were carried out. In case of the lining epithelium of the tubules, only five observations were in only five observations in polyscope, we were only able to identify the lining epithelium of the proximal convoluted tubule and the distal convoluted tubule in the cortex by the polyscope. And the staining of the cells was distinct. Means we have two different. Means proximal convoluted tubule cells are more stained in the hematoxylin and eosilin staining, but distal convoluted tubule are less stained. And that peculiar features was also able to be distinguished with the help of the polyscope in all of the samples as I have shown here. And in the case of the lumen, the size of the lumen of the proximal convoluted tubule is also small, and the size of the convoluted lumen of the distal convoluted tubule is big. Means comparatively bigger than that of the proximal convoluted tubule. So this feature was also made able. This feature was also identified with the help of the polyscope. But the only thing that was not able in case of the 20 observation, we are not able to identify the lining epithelium of the tubules of the proximal convoluted and the distal convoluted tubule. Similarly, in case of the medulla, that was of the previous slide was that of the proximal convoluted tubule, and now talking about the case of the medulla, the lining epithelium and the lumina of the collecting duct and the straight tubules of the loop of the Henle. In 25 observations, or in all observations, the loop of the Henle's lining epithelium and the collecting duct epithelium was able to be identified, and staining of the cells was also able to be differentiated. But in the case of the that is, I was previously talking about the lumen. In case of only 6 observations, the lining epithelium of the collecting duct and the loop of the Henle was able to be identified. Means in the case of the loop of Henle, we have that squamous epithelium. So in that case, only in 6 observations. Previously, in case of the cortex, we were able to identify only 5 observations. But in case of the medulla, we were able to identify only the 6 observations. Means we are only able to identify the lining epithelium of the 6 samples in this in the cortex, means medulla. Okay, now talking about the observations, what were the findings that we saw on observation? This is the photo taken from the conventional microscope. Observations were carried out, and this is the photo that is taken from the full discover, that is the paper microscope. That is the histological feature of kidney. Okay, now we can clearly see here, this is the Bowman's capsule, this is the urinary space, this is the glomerulus. Okay, and the proximal convoluted tubules are extend a bit, they are more present in the cortex, and distal convoluted tubules are more present in the periphery. The peculiarity of this image is, look, comparing between these images, the manufacturer says that from the magnification power of the polyscope is 100x, means it can able to magnify an object 100 times. But comparatively seeing this, the conventional microscope has also set in 100x. But look at the image, means there is a bigger image found on the polyscope comparing to that of the conventional microscope, and we can only clearly see that there is the peripheral distortion of the image. This is not caused due to the photography mistake, but the quality of the image is similar, and the central area of the clear image was only found. This is similar observations were made in the cortex as well. We can see here the Bowman's capsule. See here the glomerulus. This is the distal connecting tubule, and we have here proximal connecting tubule. And this is the observation made from that of the conventional microscope. Means the staining of the cells is also very peculiar in case of the polyscope. These are these and these are the same samples that were viewed differently under polyscope and the paper conventional microscope. But look, compare the difference between the staining of the cells. This is also a different peculiar feature of the polyscope. And this is the medulla of the kidney. This is the same slides. We can see here the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct and the loop of the Henle were identified. And this was the procedure how the images were taken during our observations. And talking about the clarity of the image and the data visibility, it was good in the case of the polyscopy, that it was able to identify, okay, this is the histology, this is the slide of the kidney. It was able to identify that, and there was the distortion of the image along with the blood areas in the periphery with the center area of the good image. As I already discussed in the previous image, there was only the center small area was able to focus with the good image, but the peripheral distortion of the image was seen in case of the foldscope. But that does not the finding in case of the conventional microscope. And as I've already discussed in the image as well, it was able to have the greater magnification comparative to that of the conventional microscope. And talking about the other studies that were done, similar studies have been carried out to evaluate the diagnostic utility of the foldscope against the conventional microscope in the bright field microscopy in case of the patient with the respiratory tract and fungal tract infection, and the sensitivity was found to be 55.9 percentage, and it was conducted by Ibrahim, and the patient, the data visibility for the wet mount staining was somehow similar to that of the white microscope, but the gram staining was poor using the case of the foldscope. The I was talking about the similar studies. They were carried out for the usefulness of the foldscope during our laboratory procedures. Okay, talking about the conclusion of my study, what can we make inference from our study is that the results suggested that the paper microscope is able to distinguish the histological feature of kidney. Okay, when we observe the slides of the kidney under the paper microscope, it is we are able to distinguish. Okay, this is kidney. And considering the price, it is only a $1 microscope. Means it costs about only $1. Considering the result obtained, price, and the versatility, means we can. We are able to make various kinds of observation using the same paper microscope, and the operating cost. We don't need an operating cost. That is, we don't require electricity. We don't require any other conventional cost taking equipments, so we can make observation without any cost. It means to say that. So it can be used in the field of histology for the identification of the histological features of the samples. Means taking the inference of the histological kidney, we can also, from this is experiment or observation, we can also make an inference that okay, this can be also utilized for the diagnosis of the histological features of okay, heart, histological features of you can say other organs of the body, and for an example, histological features of blood as well. And the paper microscope can, so from these all observation, right, what we can reach up to the conclusion is that the paper microscope can be used as a useful alternative to the conventional microscope in low research setting for the identification of the histological samples. Means from this, what is the usefulness of the foldscope is that in case of the low research setting, as in case of the rural areas or in some part of the our my own countries as well, where there is no any facility for the conventional microscopy. Okay, means any sort of uh, clinical observations can be carried out, or for the identification of the disease process. We can make an inference from that, and we have the co-authors from our department of anatomy and community medicine, as well as I had my one friend. And thank you for listening me. It was all. If there is any question,